agency,
Mm-hmm.
introspection, and capacity building. All three. So, agency, as I described, we have an opportunity, we have a choice always. Now, it seems like we don't have choices, but we need to understand where our choices lie. But we have a choice, and even inaction is a choice. So, introspection, kind of turning the tables and looking at ourselves and how we responded and how we showed up in certain situations. And then capacity building, I think, is important. Oftentimes we try to avoid tough situations, but I find that I try to lean in and find out what's going on, because you begin to exercise that muscle if you begin to lean into discussions and lean into difficult situations. And I would say that's part of true leadership.
Welcome to the True Leadership Podcast, where we sit down with executive leaders to explore what leadership really means through the lens of their stories, their wins, their struggles, their vision, and their lessons along the way. I'm Ty Hammond, founder of One Mountain Leadership and creator of the True Leadership Approach, an awareness-based path that helps leaders shift their focus from what to do about their problems to how to grow from them. Whether you're just stepping into leadership or are well-seasoned and at the top of your game, your potential won't be realized following someone else's script, but you can draw insights from their stories and turn it into wisdom by putting it into practice in your own life.
Welcome, folks, to the True Leadership Podcast, where we explore the essence of leadership beyond tactics and performance by sitting down with executives to hear what matters most to them. I'm your host, Jessy James, and today's guest is Vanessa Parker-Lewis. Vanessa is a transformational Chief Human Resources Officer, known for driving enterprise-wide workforce strategy and organizational change. With deep experience across large-scale, multi-site operations, she partners closely with executive leadership to align talent strategy with operational performance and long-term growth. Throughout her career, Vanessa has delivered measurable impact, reducing turnover, leading crisis response during major disruptions, and building inclusive, high-performing cultures. A PhD with HR certifications, she blends data-driven strategy with authentic leadership. Her approach centers on empowering people, strengthening culture, and ensuring human capital strategy becomes a true competitive advantage. Vanessa, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Jessy.
Fantastic. Vanessa, I'm curious, who is someone from your early life, or it might even be an early experience, that shaped the kind of leader that you are today?
You know, it's interesting. My godmother did. My godmother was a little bitty, she's like 4'11", but she was a powerhouse. And she only had a couple of jobs in her life, believe it or not, but she was really more driven to church groups, and how she led various ages really impacted me as I watched her lead. And I remember when I was at Frito-Lay, I was in operations. I wasn't always in human resources. And I remember arriving to work, at like 3:30 in the morning, and I had a team of guys, and and they were like, "Oh, she's always so happy and good morning." And I remember, one person didn't want to take out a display that I asked about, and then another person didn't want to do something. And as I was speaking with my godmother, I was telling her about this particular day. And I was like, oh my goodness, seems like everybody that I spoke with today had a challenge. And she, she just listened, and, and she said, you're the common denominator in all of that. I was like, whoa. Okay, I'm going to call you back. But, it really made me begin to think, right, that, to not be a victim of circumstances, and really to understand that I have agency in every interaction, every decision that I'm in. So she actually helped shape the leader that I'm in. Did she work for a corporation? No, she didn't. She was a housewife and led different community and church groups, but she taught me the importance of agency and introspection.
Love your
Yeah.
godmother. And thank you for sharing that story. That was wonderful. Vanessa, what does true leadership mean to you? What, from your perspective, makes a true leader?
Agency,
Mm,
introspection, and capacity building, all three. So agency, as I described, we have an opportunity, we have a choice always. Now it seems like we don't have choices, but we need to understand where our choices lie. But we have a choice, and even inaction is a choice. So introspection, kind of turning the tables and looking at ourselves and how we responded and how we showed up in certain situations. And then capacity building. Capacity building, I think, is important. Oftentimes we try to avoid tough situations, but I find that I try to lean in and find out what's going on because um, you begin to exercise that muscle if you begin to lean into discussions and lean into difficult situations. And I would say that's part of true leadership. Many people would say that it's about talent and it's about having a very specific hard skill, like, oh my goodness, I know V lookup and X lookup on with Excel. That's a nice to have, but you know what? It's more important to be able to engage people and to be introspective and understand your impact in people's day to day and their lives more than any hard skill.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, life is life and leadership is a path that's shaped by fundamental turning points that we encounter along the way, right? Can you share about a time when you realized that your way of leading or living no longer met the demands of your work and life and growth was needed?
Let's see. You know, I can. It was my change from operations to human resources. So, you know, um, I was in operations for a while and I began to look around and I'm like, is this what I want to do? Do I want to always be the chip lady? Because I worked for Frito Lay and love Frito Lay even to this day. But I was like, is is this really what I want to do the rest of my life? And so as I began to look around, the organization, I was like, you know what? Actually, I'd like to get into HR. And I had my peer leaders who would ask me, how did I handle different situations? Because I was a young leader and I led men that were twice my age, quite frankly. And they would ask me, how did I engage with them? How could I get them to respond to my request? And I learned that I had a knack for people, even though it's not the, oh my goodness, hi, and the party planning. I am not the party planner. Um, I can assist, but I am not the party planner. But I had a knack for engaging people and being authentic with that engagement and really, you know, providing some constructive feedback where necessary and exercising the courage to do so.
Mm.
So I learned that, you know, being in operations probably wasn't my niche, that I needed to switch over and utilize the talent that I have in a different capacity.
Got it. Yeah, that's so exciting. That kind of insight, right? And to kind of get to that space where it's something that you love, free to lay, and then to kind of get to a different space and pivot. That's super exciting. And thinking about your journey, what's been the most valuable investment that you've made in yourself and in your own growth?
I think the most valuable investment was securing and financing my PhD. In fact, all of my education I financed myself. So I left home, Jesse, actually at 17 years old. My mother passed when I was 10, and my father remarried, and it was not a good situation. I did not get along with my stepmother, and I remember saying to him, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to leave. And he said, no, you're not. And I'm not one to argue. I'm one that I'm going to create a path and I'm just going to act. So when he left, I left. And I worked with family members to become emancipated so I could become an emancipated adult, secured Social Security on my own. And from there, went to undergraduate school, of course, graduate school, and then financed my own PhD. So I believed in self advocacy and investing in myself. And even when others did not believe that that was something that I should or could do. And I say that because I remember when I was going through an executive coaching program, and the executive coach, without being asked, it was unsolicited, he said, I don't have any challenge with you, um, securing a doctorate. And I was, I didn't ask you. I never shared that aspiration. So that let me know that someone was speaking about me in unfavorable ways. That let me know that. So, and then I also had a leader who, at the same time, she was getting her undergraduate degree and being reimbursed. She told me that there wasn't funding for me to be reimbursed for my doctorate. So, despite some, and that was all corrected. It was not with my employer now. Even despite all of that, self advocacy and having the courage to move on, I think you invest in yourself, regardless of what naysayers believe or think.
And I love how you talk about self-advocacy and moving on. So on that note, what's your vision for your leadership, for your legacy, or the impact that you want to have in the years ahead?
My legacy is to grow leaders. So it would mean the world to me for someone else to, whether it's here or another organization, be in the same role that I am in. That's my legacy, is to grow leaders. It is not to have a tribe of folks who only look to Vanessa for the answers. It's really to have a tribe of folks that they are equal leaders and they go forth and then they create leaders. Right? So that is ultimately my goal. What I do with my team is, when I go to different executive functions about HR or groups, I take at least one person with me. We're going to go and learn together. We're going to go on this journey together. That's my legacy. I want to create leaders.
And Vanessa, I'm curious, what are the ways in which you need to grow personally in order to sort of realize that vision?
Ooh, how I need to grow. Do you have time? I tend to fly high. And when I say I fly high, I have a vision and I'm looking way past. I'm already on Friday, believe it or not, and today's Monday. And that's where my team is good. They're like, Vanessa, wait a minute. Now we have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to think about, So yeah, we do. So I tend to, that's something that I need to personally work on, is to not always fly so high and so far, and take a moment and take a step back and look at the details, because the devil is in the details, and I realize that. However, I get energized by thinking about what's next. Oh my goodness, I am a what's next. Oh, what's next? What's next? That is me.
Got it. Where do you feel most tested right now? Like what challenges are stretching you the most, both in leadership and in life?
I think I think leadership and life are the same. I know people speak about the work-life balance, and I'm going to be transparent how I believe. I think it's integration. I don't think that there's balance. When I think of balance, I think there's give and take on something, and people have to show up differently. And I don't believe in showing up differently. Who I am at work is who I am at home, right, wrong, or indifferent. So I believe in integration, and we have to prioritize where we're going to spend our time. So with that, I think the major piece is the talent market as it is today. Is ensuring that we are securing top talent for our needs of not only today, but tomorrow. And as we move into, and we're more of a tech enabled company, we really are, because we are introducing new platforms. And a lot of those platforms really take some of the day to day rote work and automates it. And that allows people to take a step back and to think through and strategize rather than pushing buttons. And I think that is a challenge when someone is so accustomed to rote work and doing the same thing day in and day out. And, automation, I think, is the future. It really is. And it's getting everyone to understand and embrace the importance of automation.
So, Vanessa, what are the ways in which you need to grow most, you need to develop most to meet these challenges?
I think, the more we can learn about AI, the better we all are. So I'm going to tell you, it's my best friend, actually. It really is. I use AI personally and professionally. However, utilization is nothing compared to what it probably can do for us. So I think learning and leaning into that is where I need to develop.
Got it. And since you talked about the talent market, I'm curious, you worked at so many different organizations and you work with talent so closely at all levels. What are you seeing that separates leaders who are thriving from those who are struggling?
I think it's the leaders who have and understand the importance of their team and talent. And they're able to have authentic and courageous discussions. And they lean in when it's difficult. They lean in and have those discussions when things aren't going so well, but they also practice empathy when they know that life happens, because guess what? Life happens. And that's why I said the work-life balance. I don't believe in that really. I believe in integration and understanding that life happens to everyone. The leaders, I believe, who are set above and apart are those that they don't have necessarily all the ins and outs and know the day-to-day of a function, but they know people and they know how to inspire people and how to walk into rooms where their people are not and represent their people. And they also know how to embrace data insights to help their people. I think that's where true leaders shine.
So this last question is more of an invitation. You have this time and space to share whatever it is straight from your heart that you'd like to share with your audience. The floor is yours. Take your time.
But thank you for that. Thank you for that. I think from a wisdom perspective and throughout life's journey for me is courage. I definitely believe in courage. Sometimes courage is having courage to speak up when you know you should, and sometimes is having courage to step away and perhaps not be in certain spaces. And when I say not be in certain spaces, knowing that your impact and your presence will not serve anyone. So give you an example, courage to say, hey, there are two employees or there are two leaders and they're not working together. Hey, let's all get together and see how we can resolve this, right? But also, as a chief human resources officer, while I would love to resolve everything, I have to have the courage and practice introspection and know when I need to step back. I mean, who wants to hear from the chief human resources officer all the time and say, oh, what problem are you having with your employee? One would say, oh, well, you're approachable or you should be approachable and that's okay. But we also have to understand our role. And sometimes have the courage to step in and the courage to step away when necessary. I think that is probably by and large my biggest lesson and the wisdom that I will impart. as well as self-advocacy.
Thank you for that. And it requires no short amount of courage to do that, to step away, right?
Exactly.
Vanessa, I so appreciate the wisdom that you shared here today with me. I've gotten so much out of this conversation, and I'm sure that whoever listens will benefit equally from what you've shared. Thank you so much for being on the True Leadership Podcast.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the True Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this to catch future episodes. This conversation was brought to you by One Mountain Leadership, where we help leaders grow the capacity, confidence, and presence of true leadership through the True Leadership approach. To learn more about the approach, our offerings, our community, and how we can help you realize your potential in both leadership and in life, visit us at onemountainleadership.com.